When it comes to American Idol, the audience is in charge. They do, after all, have a say in which contender advances to the finals. That's the way it should be, anyhow. But lately, among other things, viewers have been complaining that the show's voting system is unjust to some viewers. The selection of contestants for American Idol may be made by judges. However, the final outcome of these finalists is decided by the viewers at home. Fans have used internet platforms, SMS messaging, apps, and phone lines to voice their votes over the years. Fans have recently started criticizing the voting process on social media, though, since the show is presently in its 23rd season. What sucks is when you are on the West Coast and your vote does not count, a fan recently posted. They went on, "I think that results night ought to be held on Monday night rather than Sunday since West Coasters have distinct interests as well. And our vote ought to count as well, but how will that be possible when the results are announced on Sunday night? Just my viewpoint. Voters on the West Coast are able to cast ballots, but they must do so before the conclusion of the Eastern broadcast. This implies that before viewing the final acts, people must cast their votes. You have to vote on East Coast time," one enthusiast said. "Depending on your television provider, you might be able to watch it live. Otherwise, simply cast your vote for your favorites and presume they performed well. That's what I did last week." Fans expressed more concerns about the voting process on American Idol in the comments section. "I really wish they wouldn't open up the voting until all contestants have sung," one fan specifically said. Outcomes for the upcoming episode. "Yeah, definitely, the last few singers of the night are kind of screwed," said another admirer. "If someone is on the verge of giving up toward the end, they are most likely doomed." Similar opinions have been expressed by other fans in the comments section. Some made comparisons to other programs that have voting systems. Among the remarks were, "It's the most ridiculous voting system ever. I detest Nevada, where I am. Only votes from the East Coast seem to matter. Why bother, then? You mean that American Idols aren't even well liked on the West Coast? You just need to determine what time it is in your time zone, but it does count. You can watch it live on the West Coast if you have ABC. I think it starts at 5 p.m. Alternatively, you may vote live while at work if you merely keep an eye on the clock and cast your ballot on your phone. For Dancing with the Stars, they follow the same procedure. It turns into a popularity contest in which you vote for your favorites. I simply detest it because I am 2 to 3 hours behind when the show starts. I watched it on YouTube TV, and it continued to air at 8 o'clock. On yet another thrilling results presentation of ABC's American Idol, the stage lights went out, shattering the hopes of one hopeful competitor and igniting the ire of millions of spectators. However, this was about how they were eliminated, not just who was eliminated. After Sunday night's broadcast, social media was ablaze with indignation, with fans across condemning the show's voting window as an obvious act of regional discrimination, making the competition's democratic process a farce for around half of its audience. For hours, the hashtag #AdolVoting scam went viral as a digital protest against a system that was seen as fundamentally broken and unjust. American Idol has depended on its viewers' ability to participate for decades. With their laptops and phones at the disposal, viewers have the enormous duty of influencing the competition, promoting their favorites, and dismissing those who don't connect. Every vote, regardless of where it comes from, should theoretically have the same weight under this system, which is based on the idea of equal opportunity. Or at least that's the delusion the program has deliberately fostered. As glaringly shown on Sunday night, the truth is much more nuanced and profoundly unfair to a sizable segment of the American Idol fan base. The show's live, worldwide broadcast format and set voting window are the issue. Viewers in the Eastern Time Zone, ET, and Central Time Zone, CT, can vote right after the performances on American Idol, which airs live in these time zones. The show, however, airs on tape delay for viewers in the Mountain Time Zone, MT, and Pacific Time Zone, PT, sometimes 3 hours later than for those on the West Coast. However, regardless of when the show is actually being seen, the voting window begins and closes at the same time for the whole nation. As a result, Viewers in the western half of the United States are essentially excluded from much, if not all, of the voting session. In California, the voting window is frequently closed for hours by the time the show concludes airing. The geographical difference in broadcast hours negates the emotional bond formed with an artist during their live performance, the instantaneous rush of motivation to cast a ballot. After witnessing performances and falling in love with the voices, fans find that their chance to shape the outcome has been stolen before they could even take part. There was an instantaneous and intense social media outrage. I discovered that the voting had ended hours ago when I was watching the concerts in California. It is a national embarrassment. How can you call this fair? One angry fan tweeted, "My favorite just gave the performance of a lifetime, but I can't vote because I'm on the West Coast," another person said. Half of its viewers are being deliberately disenfranchised by American Idol. Thousands more posts mirrored the sentiment, a collective howl of fury from supporters who believed that a system that valued the ease of a live broadcast over fair play principles was dismissing their passion and dedication. This problem with American Idol is not new. A persistent annoyance for West Coast viewers, the issue of the uneven voting window has dogged the program for years. But it appears that this season's criticism has intensified to an unprecedented level. Maybe it's the present political atmosphere, when discussions about democratic justice and voting rights are at the center of the national conversation. Maybe fans are more emotionally invested because of the finalists' extraordinary skill this season. Or maybe the fury has finally bubbled over after years of feeling neglected. Over the years, the show's creators have provided a number of defenses and reasons for the present setup. They contend that it is extremely costly and logistically difficult to transmit live in all time zones at the same time. The difficulties of arranging live performances, judges' comments, and commercial breaks over a 4-hour time difference are highlighted. They could also contend that the results show, which is frequently produced soon after the performance is complete, would lose its urgency and thrill if the voting period was extended considerably after the live broadcast in the East. Even if these practical challenges exist, the alienated viewers find them to be insignificant. The concept that a major network television program cannot figure out a means to adopt a really egalitarian voting system seems more and more out of date and unacceptable in an era of streaming services, on-demand material, and advanced digital platforms. Although they have their own shortcomings, fans quickly point out that other reality competition shows have managed to lessen this problem. Some extend the voting time so that viewers on the West Coast can take part after their postponed broadcast. Others have looked into alternative voting procedures that aren't dependent on the live broadcast schedule or regional voting. In addition to alienating West Coast spectators, the existing arrangement seriously compromises the competition's integrity. The results no longer seem to be a real representation of national popularity or skill when they may be impacted by the time zone in which viewers are located. It sets up a situation in which a very well-liked candidate in the West can be eliminated only because their most devoted followers were unable to vote. This is unjust not only to the audience but also to the competitors, who have put their all into their performances, only to have a geographical technicality potentially decide the destiny. There is more to this vote disparity than meets the eye. West Coast favorites have frequently been unexpectedly removed, according to anecdotal evidence from previous seasons, which has raised the possibility that the unfair voting window was a major factor. Although the program doesn't disclose specific voting results by area, the West Coast's indignation after some eliminations suggests a real impact. Fans already believe that brilliant candidates with large Western fan bases will be at a disadvantage this season, demonstrating the obvious discontent. The promise of finding the next big star, a talent that appeals to viewers nationwide, is the foundation of the American Idol brand. It's a program that benefits greatly from audience participation and interaction. In addition to undermining viewer confidence, the program may be making it more difficult to identify really represented talent by alienating a sizable section of its audience through an unjust voting process. If so many Americans are essentially shut out of the voting process, how can the show say it is searching for the next American Idol? Although the public response has been subdued, the show's producers have taken note of the social media criticism. Ryan Seacrest, the host of Sunday's results broadcast, made a passing reference to the voting window and encouraged viewers to cast their ballots as soon as possible. But rather than being a sincere effort to address the root of the problem, this seemed like a token acknowledgement. Millions of people felt cheated out of the opportunity to participate, and it did not provide any answers or even an apology. The ire has only grown as a result of the show's lack of a meaningful reaction. Supporters feel ignored, as their justifiable worries are ignored in favor of preserving the status quo. One irate viewer wrote, "They've known for years that this is a problem. However, they won't fix it. It demonstrates a total disregard for their fans on the West Coast." Additionally, the present voting mechanism produces an odd dynamic among the online community of American Idol. While fans on the West Coast feel like they're late to a party that has already finished, supporters in the East and Central time zones may participate in real-time conversations and vote planning strategies. This makes the sense of alienation and disconnection even worse. What are the possible remedies for this persistent issue? Extending the voting session considerably would be the most straightforward and fair approach, giving people in all time zones enough time to submit their ballots once the show ends in their respective locations. Voting lines might need to remain available for a few hours following the postponed West Coast show. This would guarantee that every viewer has an equal chance to participate, even though it could necessitate a little modification to the results presentation timing. Implementing a phased voting system, in which voting opens and shuts at various times depending on time zones, is another possible approach. Although more sophisticated technological infrastructure would be needed, the voting window would more precisely match each region's broadcast schedule. As an alternative, the program can consider switching to a performance episode format that is entirely pre-recorded. This would enable a simultaneous national debut and a uniform voting period for all viewers. Fairness and accessibility for all viewers would be given priority, even if the thrill of a live broadcast would be lost. Additionally, the program could think about using weighted voting methods that account for the audience's geographic distribution or regional voting. These strategies might be investigated as ways to lessen the effects of the time zone difference, despite the fact that they each have their own complications and possible drawbacks. The creators of American Idol are ultimately accountable for resolving this situation. In addition to being unjust, the existing system is not long-term viable. The program runs the risk of losing a sizable section of its devoted fan base as fans grow more outspoken and coordinated in their protests. American Idol, viewers' fervor and devotion are a great asset, and the program should do all in its ability to preserve and cherish that bond rather than sabotage it with an antiquated and unfair voting system. It is evident from the outrage after Sunday night's results reveal that the current quo is unacceptable. The fans' message is plain and unmistakable: the existing voting method is unjust and has to be changed. American Idol must make a decision. It can either listen to its fans and adopt a voting method that accurately captures the democratic spirit of the competition, or it can keep ignoring the worries of its West Coast audience and run the danger of further losing a significant portion of its fan base. The foundation of American Idol is the belief that common people should have the opportunity to realize their aspirations. The show honors skill, tenacity, and the influence of the popular vote. However, the show's basic structure is put into doubt when time zones are used to manipulate the popular vote. Fairness, transparency, and a voting method that gives everyone, wherever they may be, an equal say in determining the competition's conclusion are what the fans are calling for. Before the annoyance becomes indifference and the program loses the very viewers who have supported it for more than 20 years, it is imperative that American Idol pay attention and take action. It may determine the show's future and its assertion that it is a genuinely nationwide competition. More than merely a popular topic, the hashtag #AdolVoting scam is a wake-up call and a last-ditch appeal from fans who just want an equal opportunity to support their favorite performers. The moment has come for American Idol to take up the call.